So, good morning, everyone. My name is Henry Son, and I'm the pastor at Heritage Presbyterian Church. And on behalf of our congregation, it's an honor and it's a privilege to be hosting this celebration. And I'd like to extend you a warm welcome for making time in your very busy schedules to travel and to come and be a part of this celebration. I would like to let people know that there are bathrooms behind the clock in that area, and if you do need to use the restroom, then we'd like to ask you to go out the side doors and go around. The door to that section is open so that you're not interrupting speakers as they're giving their memories of. We're here today to honor the very full life that Marty Kienitz. Family and friends will describe his journey from its beginning to the end in more detail, but a brief outline of his life might look like this. Marty was born during the Depression in Minnesota and became part of a fine family surrounded by an extended family. He met Mary singing in the Chamber Singers at the University of Minnesota, and after they graduated, he followed her to California where they were married. He worked as an electronics engineer in California for about 30 years. During this time, they raised not only their own 3 children, but housed a series of 10 other teenagers who each needed a place to live for a while. When their children were finished with their schooling, Mary and Marty brought his widowed mother back to live with them in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And after 7 years in Minnesota, they moved to Madison, Wisconsin, where they lived for 29 years, before returning to the Bay Area to live near their oldest son. Marty and Mary have been extremely grateful to all of those who have helped them resettle in their new community. As he enjoyed his family and friends, Marty's nature is described in this well-known passage from 1 Corinthians 13. I'll be reading from the New International Version. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. And it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. At this point, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Marty's brother, Elaine Kienitz, to come forward. And as Alan is making his way forward, I'd like to ask each speaker to introduce himself or herself when they begin to speak. So, is this too high?
Probably.
Okay, then let me lower it.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll back up. I'm Alan Kienitz. I'm the third of the Kienitz 4 kids, but I'm now the patriarch. My sister passed away a year ago. My younger brother passed away almost 11 years ago, and Marty, of course, just recently passed away. And as I was telling my son Roy, I'm the patriarch. Anything I tell you, nobody can contradict me. But I'm going to try and stick to the facts. I'm just about 4 years younger than Martin. So when I graduated from 8th grade, he graduated from high school. When I graduated from high school, he graduated from college. My parents, people were born in Rochester, Minnesota, at the Mae Ola Clinic, which is a series of hospitals in Rochester. But then my dad got a job in Minneapolis about 1945 or so, and we moved up there, but couldn't find a place to live. So there's a picture over there I want you to look at when you leave or when you're wandering later. It's a picture of the 4 kids in summer attire. We were at the beach at the place they rented on a lake in Minnesota because they couldn't find a place to live in Minneapolis. In that picture, Linda and I are pretending to have tea. Younger brother David, 3 years younger than us, was playing with a truck. Marty is sitting leaning against a tree reading a book about astronomy. And it's a posed picture. Obviously, my parents weren't into photography particularly. But it kind of indicates where Marty was in my family's pecking order. He was the smart one. He was older. He was always into doing stuff that were just beyond my ken. And I'll give you a few. He hand ground a piece of 8-inch glass to form a convex mirror that replicated Mount Palomar. In other words, the light comes in, the convex mirror focuses it on a little tiny mirror that goes off to the side. He ground that mirror all by himself with help from his best friend who became an astronomer, Arthur Upton. I watched him build a Heathkit amplifier, not on mine, but on the mail. He ordered the amplifier, he was about 14. Ordered the amplifier, bought a turntable, and I watched him solder everything together. I was awed when he graduated, and you heard the story that he met Mary at the University of Minnesota. She moved to California, and he got accepted at USC, University of Southern California, to get his graduate degree. He held a ceremony on our front steps. He took his winter overshoes and sprayed it with lighter fluid and put it on fire. Unfortunately, the prophecy didn't. He wanted no more winter. Well, as you heard, they came back and lived for years and years before they had winters. He particularly impressed me. One vacation trip we took to Colorado. We had some spare time, and I attempted to take a ball peen hammer and pound out a dent I had put in our 1939 Studebaker at my first driving. First time I'd ever taken the car out by myself. And I'm pounding away, and he's helping, we're pounding. Now I gotta read it to you. When my efforts failed to move the metal, he proceeded to tell me that the handle of the ball peen hammer was too short, and the head was too small a mass to allow us success. Literally, Marty analyzed scientifically everything that happened. But the best part of growing up with this quiet, gentle genius was his heart. On another family trip, we tent camped a lot as a family. We took the car from Minneapolis and drove up to the headwaters of the Mississippi River, which is on Lake Itasca up in northern Minnesota. And we jumped across the creek, the Mississippi River, lots of times, and then it started to rain. And it rained, and it rained, and it rained. And my parents went off to find a hotel or something that we could stay in. They hadn't planned to. And the 4 kids were in the tent with absolutely nothing to do. And it was just kind of a glum, wet, rainy, cold day. Marty proceeded to say, "You ever heard about the bootywigs and the squudgemumples?" The bootywigs and the squudgemumples. I don't know whether he made it up or whether it was. Here's the story. And he proceeded to start a storyline, and then he said, "Linda, what comes next?" And Linda was smart enough to say, well, and then she added to the story, "Alan, what's next?" We proceeded to spend an hour developing that story, round and round and round, and Marty initiated it. When we came up here last July to visit Marty and Mary, we were all seated in a restaurant with all the relatives, my kids, and Marty, Mary, and Paul and Lois, and Marty and Mary were sitting across from each other. And I said, "Do you remember the bootywigs and the squudgemumples?" And he laughed. He did remember. And my his nephew, my grandson, who's at college now, was there and said, "Maybe why don't you write it?" And so we made a pact, the 3 of us, that maybe we should start working on a children's book about the bootywigs and the squudgemumples. Marty's gone, but I think if my grandson and I actually get it done, it will be dedicated to Marty. As you can probably discern, I miss Marty very much. Thank you.
And then Roy Kienitz.
Hi everyone, so I'm Roy Kienitz. I am Mary Marty's youngest son, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about what it was like growing up with the person that Al described sort of in his formation. And I'll break this sort of into three parts. One was sort of learning, and I realized upon thinking about it that I really learned more at home than I did at school, because every night at the dinner table was a whole long discussion of something, and it was heavy on science and things like that, which I think Paul is probably going to talk a little bit about. Now, I was the youngest, and so I did learn about the theory of relativity, probably when I was probably about 8 years old. So space and time are one thing, and they bend, and I'm going, okay, I'm trying to get that. But also part of the reason I think I learned so much at home was because he had really a patience and a skill for teaching. He was very calm and quiet and patient, and that really worked well with us, and that's something I hope that I take from him. And the other part of that dinner table conversation every night was, of course, that he was at the dinner table every night because he was home for dinner, because he wasn't at the office, because he had organized his life and prioritized that, and prioritized family, and prioritized us. And so we were able to have that countless hundreds and hundreds of nights sitting there having whatever discussion, and I really appreciate that. I think Paul's going to talk about the sort of the sciencey part of that, which is something very big. He also taught me, certainly, so many little practical skills. We had a garage off the side of the house, and there were all these old, half-taken apart machines and tools and things like that, and I would sort of go in there, and he would show me a little bit of pieces in this, and as Asa knows, I have a few too many kind of half-assembled bicycles in my basement right now where I'm swapping the parts. And I was thinking about that today. It's like, well, how did I learn how to take apart a bicycle and what the parts are and how they work? Well, I'm already talking about it. I was 11 years old and I needed to fix my bike. And he said, we didn't take that to the bike shop. I'll show you how to do that. And what I realized sort of from all of that is he taught us and me that you can figure out anything. Just because you don't know yet doesn't mean that you can't figure it out. Just sit down and start studying it, and you'll figure it out. And that's a skill that I hope that I can take into the rest of my life. The second thing is that he was someone who I think really loved the simple pleasures of life. He was not intensely driven and ambitious to go, conquer in the big world. He loved the outdoors. And I think of, as Al was discussing, the many camping trips. And the image I really have of his moment of bliss is we're at the lake, everything's set up, the tent's there, the stove, all this stuff is all set up, kids are playing and they're happy, and he's in a camp chair under a tree in the shade reading a book about astronomy. Because that was his happiest moment, is to be in a beautiful place, but be exercising his mind about things that he cared about. So, and of course there's a lot of music, and I think there are others that will go into that in more depth than us today. But every child has the experience. You grow up in a family, you think everything about your family is normal, and then you get old enough that you go meet other people and you learn. And in my case, it was, you mean your parents don't sit down at the dinner table and sing music from the 15th century in an ensemble context? I literally have never, other than the people in this room who did that, who their families have had that experience, I don't think I've ever met anyone else in my entire life who had that as a childhood experience. But it was a good experience. Playing chess was something that we did a lot when I was a kid, and I learned how to play chess from Marty, who taught me. And of course, this tells you both something about him and something about me, which is, how many times did I play chess against him? Hundreds. I never, ever beat him. Ever once in my life. And what it tells you about me is that I remember that. And what it tells you about him is, I'm sure if I had ever said that to him, he would be surprised by that and would never have remembered it. Because he didn't care about that. And that was another thing I think I picked up from him, which is it's not about winning. Life's not about winning. It's about other things. And I feel like that was a good lesson for me. And the other, once again, I played chess against him hundreds of times because he was there. And we were sitting around, and we had time. Hey, you want to play a game of chess? Sure, let's try it again. And then the third one was, he had a very strong ethical sense, and I think Paul's going to talk about that a little bit. We didn't just talk about astronomy, say, around the dinner table. We talked about civil rights. We talked about the Vietnam War, and we talked about nuclear weapons. And of course, because it was our house, in the discussion of nuclear weapons, there was a strong emphasis on the importance of the neutron in atomic fission and sustaining the chain reaction. So I learned that too. He was very interested in being a good person, but also very non-judgmental. And that was something that I hope we learned. So I feel like the things I take away from this are 4. 1, enjoy learning new things. Marty really enjoyed learning up until the very end. I mean, he wrote out on page treatise on economics like a year and a half ago, which I have still. Seek out life's simple pleasures, be kind to others, and the last one was keep up with the latest developments in cosmology, because there's lots of interesting new things being discovered.
Maybe Paul?
That's me, I'm here.
Oh, sorry, I don't
I know you
know
don't.
it.
Not a problem. Let's see if I can use this. I thought I could wing it, but I wrote down a few things. I met Marty and Mary when I was 18 years old and a freshman at Foothill College in Halton. And I was doing a lot of music at Foothill. I was a violinist, and I started in some singing groups there. But I was playing viola in the Peninsula Symphony, and one of the other viola players said to me, "Know anybody that want to sing madrigals?" And I thought, my mother had sung madrigals, so I knew what they were. And I said, "Oh, maybe that'd be interesting," and that's how I met them. I'm sure my parents vetted them very seriously before they let me go to these older people. Well, you were older, and you still are. I sang with them until I went away to college. My junior year, I went to Whitman College in Washington State, and then I got my library degree at University of Denver, and then I worked for a year in Baltimore. And then I came back to Palo Alto and got married to my husband, who I had met at Stanford in the library. And the OK Chorale, which my father had named the group, sang at my wedding. Mary, Ruth, and other people that aren't, I forget who else was in the group, but it was wonderful. They spelled Kienitz wrong in the paper, but what did I expect? 20 years later, not to the day, but 20 years later, the OK Chorale sang again in public at my brother and Carol's wedding. So every 20 years we do a gig. Chuck and I lived in the East and in Oregon, but we came back to California in 1971, and I reintegrated with the OK Chorale, just as if I'd never been gone. I had been gone, anyway. What else do I want to say? We were a group of kindred spirits who loved this music. We were all very good sight readers, so we sang music for fun. We didn't really work on it very hard. And we were also a dessert group. We had some amazing desserts every Tuesday night that we sang. It was really, really fun. We also had a very famous New Year's Eve party every year whose menu consisted of lasagna and hot fudge sundaes. It was really special. But one more cooking story, although Mary says she did this, but it's so Marty, you have to tell it. We were at their house singing one night, and they had made a pineapple upside down cake, but hadn't put the pineapple in it. And when Marty cut it, he went, "This looks kind of funny." So, but she says she did it. Let's say he did it, because he would have done it. Anyway, the membership in this group changed as people's lives changed. People moved away, new people joined the group. I remember how depressed I was when they moved to Minnesota, because Ruth also moved to Pennsylvania. At that time, I thought, oh, this group's going to fall apart, but that didn't happen. We found new people to go on singing, and we had a lot of music, and we kept going. Over the course of 46 years, we had nearly 30 people sing in the group, but not all at once. We had 6 to 8 people each time. People were dining room tables except for Frank, but he brought food. So every time Marty and Mary came to California I think it was over Christmas, and Frank said to me, he was totally serious, "Do I have time to remodel the kitchen?" And I said, "No." Marty directed some. We had somebody keep us together as we sang. He was always such a wonderful, quiet presence, and he had such a wonderful musical background. I learned so much from these people about the music of the period and being in a fun group and everybody being an equal. Where am I here? Our favorite composer was Don Carlo Gesualdo, and it's like doing difficult puzzles to learn his music. But we worked on it very hard, and we were pretty proud of what we did learn. They're really brain-twisting music. After Marty and Mary moved back to the Midwest, I visited them many times and in all seasons. I do have to say, I was worried about them when they moved from Shoreview to Duluth. I was worried it wasn't cold enough for them. But Tom actually visited them in Duluth.
Okay. Did, but
It's a good story, okay. None of the rest of us did. We had a great reunion there of many of the singers in 1983 in Shoreview, and some of the pictures over there I recognized from that get-together was really fun. And when they moved to Madison, it was fairly close to Chicago, and if I had a reason to go to Chicago, I would take the famous Van Galder bus up to Madison and visit them. I visited you when you lived in a condo somewhere that I think you were renting.
Townhouse.
Yeah, townhouse. And then at the Shoreview house, and then at the two places you lived in the apartments, yeah, so. Anyway, I also remember going on at least one trip to the Sierras with some other singers. I never cross-country skied. I didn't know you had muscles on the back of your arms until I did that for a day. And I can remember Marty standing on a trail and just gradually falling over. It was like a laugh-in episode. It was very, very funny. It was like a slow motion fall. It was amazing. Some of us are still singing, others are not, but the friendships we made throughout the years transcend time and distance. And we all miss Marty very much. And Ruth has something she'd like to share about the last time we saw Marty, which was in June this year. They came down to Palo Alto to attend my early music concert. So she has a great story to tell.
It's just very short, so don't tell her. But I am one of the OK Chorale Singers. And when Marty and Mary came to visit us in June, he and I had a chance to be walking a little bit ahead or somewhere away from the rest. And he said, you know, I've been thinking about my life lately, what it meant to me. And he said, I think one of the best decisions I ever made was not to accept a certain job offer, which would have taken him away from that area. And I think that's probably what you're going to talk about with the ethical decisions. He said it was the best decision I ever made because it meant I could get singing the OK Chorale. And he felt that too.
The piece you're going to hear is from the University of Wisconsin Madrigal group, and Marty was singing in this group. It was a small, select group in the university in Madison, Wisconsin, had a large music department. And it was a town and ground group, so adults in the community could sing with the students. And Marty sang in that group for about 13 years. And we're just going to play one piece that on one of the recordings.
Chantez, Hi, my name is Paul. I'm Marty's eldest son. And I'm going to speak about his life in science and engineering. My father was not only a man of decency and integrity, but also a man of intellect. As you heard, he built things like telescopes when he was a kid, and he hung out with nerdy pals who grew up to be professional scientists. And in college, he studied math and physics. He got a master's degree at USC. He was not impressed by USC. He did not like that. When he heard about Nixon's dirty tricks crew, he said they reminded him of people he knew at USC. But he got his degree. And then at the start of his career, he got into what must have been on print paper a perfect career for a bright scientist or engineer at the time. He was doing electronics and optics for defense contractors in aerospace. And he helped pioneer innovations such as the heat-seeking missile. I think somewhere in the files of paper he authored at that time about the technology in those days. But he got more and more uncomfortable with the destructive uses that technology was being put to by these companies that he worked for. So he spoke up with ethical objections when people proposed nasty ideas and what they could do in a warlike context. And he couldn't accept the bland justifications that other engineers were satisfied by. So finally in the late 60s he had to quit. He just quit and would not do that career anymore. And he decided to use his powers for good and make medical devices, though it meant a substantial pay cut. He was much happier in the new career. He was working on heart monitors, blood pressure transducers, and isotope counting machines, things like that doctors could use, and helped to develop one of the first ultrasound imagers. And when I was older, he would occasionally take me to the shop after hours, and I could see the prototypes, his gizmos that he worked on. And it's around this time that I remember him at his most creative, and he was spinning hilarious improvised songs and stories for our entertainment. He would just start with an idea and just run with it, and don't even know where you'd end up. It would just be hilarious. But even in this new medical instrument career, he was still the one who would raise ethical questions and bring up concerns about patient safety, such as how little they knew at the time about the levels of ultrasound exposure that were safe. And if anyone started trying to pitch the idea that the company's purpose was to make money rather than help patients, he would not hesitate to get up in their grill. When the government needed a committee to set the safety standards for ultrasound, Madrigal sent to be a member, and he became the company's head of regulatory affairs and then head of quality assurance. And even though he had never let his work take priority over getting home to his family, so he showed that he can advance without sacrificing that. After his medical instrument career ended, he ended up doing part-time work in a superconductivity laboratory. That is some science fiction stuff. When you're doing work like that, you don't need liquid helium to be cool. After he retired, and particularly after the crash in 2008, he turned much of his intellectual attention to the subject of economics, a field which isn't called dismal science for nothing, as it's full of people following fads and ideologies or serving political agendas rather than seeking truth. Marty always sought truth. And in this area, it was not easy to uncover. He described the field as in deep trouble with going through a process of renewal. What I personally miss most about is just a chance to discuss interesting topics and hear his ideas about whatever he'd been thinking about. Other people speak of things they wish they had said to someone who's passed. I don't have anything to say to him. I just want to listen to him. And but what the world will miss is his steadfast determination to do good. By working at home among friends and confrontations, he always strove to make the world a bit better. And a good and decent society that works well and treats people right is not something that happens by accident. It takes steady effort. It takes a trillion little contributions from people who choose to put some of their sweat and skill toward the common good. If life on the whole is treating you okay and you have enough to be thankful for, then people like Marty Kienitz are a good part of the reason why. So remember him as I do, with gratitude.
Mae Ola Davis.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mae Ola Davis. I'm the crybaby of the family. Marty. Can't really talk a lot about Marty without talking about Mary. They were a package deal. I came to live with them when I was about 15, 16. So I've known him for a long, long time. I've lived with him through high school and college, most of college. Marty was an extremely compassionate person, very, very caring, very, very concerned person. And I always remember the times he's put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Are you okay, Mae Ola?" He was a determined person. I remember the time he said, "We're going to teach you how to drive." And we went on our adventure for me to start learning how to drive the family car. It went well. Marty was very persistent to make sure that I knew when to turn and when not to turn. And I'd like to say, because of him, I probably am one of the better drivers out there. He was very non-judgmental, as mentioned before. When I would leave the house to go to school on the bicycle, it was very, very close to Gunn High School in Barron Park. I always felt a sense of warmth from he and Mary. I always knew they cared. And I always knew I better come home after school. I never will forget the day that I did come home right away. And Mary was very, very concerned. And when I got to the house, I had to give her a detail for detail of why I was late. And I think I had stayed around for something happening at school. I don't remember specifically what it was. But Mary's memory is better than mine. I'm sure she probably remembered that very clearly. I remember all the times that having come from Mississippi, where you eat a lot of food at dinner time, Southern cooking, that the first time I cooked a Thanksgiving dinner, prepared that dinner, everyone had a great time, but they were amazed at how much food was involved in a Thanksgiving dinner. We had pecan pies, sweet potato pies, you name it, we had it. But we had a great time. I learned so much from them in terms of, especially Mary and Marty, from being healthy, eating healthy, exercise. Mary's always been a role model for me in how to take care of yourself, and I respect her for that. She was a go-getter. When I graduated from high school, I graduated in the top third of my class, and they had told us that Mary Marty that we don't have graduation ceremonies for kids who graduate early. I was going to, graduate in January instead of June. And Mary said, oh no, she's graduating early, she should be penalized for graduating early. Mary made it happen. So she always had my back, she and Marty. They were very, very unique and will always have a special place in my heart. Always have a special place in my heart. You know, the old saying is, you don't have to be blood to be family. Well, that's absolutely true. Because I'm closer to them than I am to some of my blood family. During the 70s, the Black Power movement, and most of you looking at me and say, you sure don't look black. And Mary would send out pictures at Christmas time of all of us, and everybody would say to Mary, where's the black student that you're sponsoring? Well, and then during that time, I was trying to get a job after going to college classes and all of that during the summers. And Black Power movement means that you needed to look black. Well, I didn't fit that criteria. So I tried to give myself an afro. I'm not sure how much spray I used, but it worked for a minute. It didn't last for very long. But it was interesting because later I did have my DNA done, and I'm 49% European, so now I understand why it didn't work. But I'm proud to be who I am, and I am so proud that I had an opportunity through my church. I grew up Catholic, I went to Catholic school, to have had the opportunity to come to California and live with Mary and Marty. And Mary and Marty both accepted me, and I was one of the children. I couldn't chew gum, had to justify why I needed to chew gum. I never felt like I was an outsider. I never felt like I was another child. I always felt embraced and loved and cared about. And I always felt that they cared about me no matter what. They loved me. And I always also want to say, it's hard for us to understand sometimes why the people we love are taken away. But I want to say, Marty's just not taken away. He may be in a better place, but he will forever be in my heart. I'm sure in all of our hearts. Mary, I love you. I will always love you. And I will always be there for you. Thank you.
Elaine?
To introduce myself, I am the widow of Martin's baby brother, Dave. That's how I fit in this family. I just wanted to tell everyone that two things summarize Mart for me when I think about him. And one is smart. And as I was accepted into the Kienitz family, I had met all the grandparents, cousins, aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters, except Mart and Mary. So I first met them after our wedding. We went on a belated trip to California, and I met them for a couple of days. So I knew Mart mostly through David's stories. And all the relatives had told me about Mart, and the word smart was always in their description of Mart.
One story that struck me to illustrate smart was preparations for the whole family driving trip, which went to California from Minneapolis, but included Kentucky on the route to make sure everyone got along in the car for this long trip. Moving of each person around was the goal. Mark was assigned the chore to figure out a seating chart for 6 people. 6 people and 6 places. How many different possibilities are there? To confound it, only one person, David, was not allowed to sit in the driver's seat. He was too young. I understand Mark accomplished the feat and had all the formulas laid out. And that certainly boggles my mind. Another story I heard was that being smart was not always at Mark's advantage. Because he was smart, he was hired by the University of Minnesota Athletic Department to set up wiring for loudspeakers and scoreboards and so on. And he had to sit at the front and center at the scorer's table during a hockey game. But since hockey didn't interest Mark, he brought a book to study. Keep in mind that the safety barriers were not what they are today at a hockey game. Suddenly a puck came his way and found Mark's nose. It might have been smarter to watch the game instead of studying. Then the other thing that reminds me of Mark is family well-being. Mark and Mary were already married and living in California when baby brother David decided he didn't want to go to college after he finished high school. David thought California might be a good place to explore. So Mark and Mary allowed him to live with them for a whole year. He did get a job with Lockheed, but imagine having a teenager living with you when both Mark and Mary were working and Mark was trying to finish his graduate degree. A real sacrifice for newlyweds. And again for family, for a job opportunity, as you've already heard, Mark and Mary were moving back to Minnesota after Paul, Karen, and Roy were on their own. The whole move was revolving around Helen, Mark's mother, who would be stranded by herself in expensive California. But she had to be convinced that going back to Minnesota was a good idea. They bought a house in Shoreview, a suburb of St. Paul, with rooms for a mother-in-law appointment. Problem solved, always with love.
We're gonna have one more speaker before we do the song. There's a reason for that, but let's have Pat speak in.
At Foltz, my husband Steve, over there in the blue shirt. The guy whose hair is, he's too tall for his hair. That's him. And our affiliation is that when Mary and Marty moved to Madison, Mary got a job with the Madison School District, as did I. And the first day we met was the first day we both worked for that school district. We happened to find each other the morning of the staff convocation, if you will, that the principal always held for everybody in that building. We were both itinerant teachers of children with visual impairments. And it's a complicated thing to describe and a complicated thing to do, but we did it. And Mary and I put our desks facing each other so that we could convince as often as possible. And subsequently, we met Marty. That's when they were living on 4th in the apartment in the townhouse. And we started doing things together. And because Mary and I had the same type of job, I can't talk about Mary and or Marty without talking about a 5th friend named Mary, we'll call her Mary P. And she was also a special ed teacher who Marty Kienitz had met at one of the schools. They shared a student. Subsequently, I ended up sharing the same student with Mary P. And so somehow the 5 of us got together. We all enjoyed gardening. We all enjoyed other things. And so here we were, this group of 5 people. Marty and Steve kind of
trying to convince together while the three of us were talking education, the ramifications of being an itinerant teacher who nobody knew who we were or why we were there. So, but the five of us ended up doing a lot together. We ate dinner together, we did orphan holidays together, or some of Mary and Marty weren't going to Washington or off somewhere else and were coming here, or Mary P. wasn't going to Michigan, or we weren't going to Lake Geneva or whatever. So we always ended up having those holidays together. We did birthdays, we did anniversaries, including Mary and Marty's 50th anniversary, as I recall. I don't know, do you remember that, Mary? Yeah, anyway. New Year's Days, one of us would always have a little open house or have the five of us over on New Year's Day to watch a football game, to eat a lot of really good food. Everybody brought food together. And every once in a while, you'd look over and there would be Marty asleep in a chair somewhere. Or talking to Steve, or they'd be off in some corner doing something else. The other thing we did together is going to a theater we have near Madison called the American Players Theater. It's an outdoor Shakespearean theater. And we went, we must have done this for 10, 15 years together. We had to buy the tickets in April, so we'd get these phone calls. Which one do you want to go and see? And so we'd have to figure that out. In April, we didn't go to the theater until September. So usually around my birthday. But we would gather, squeeze all five of us into a vehicle. Often our van, we have a Grand Caravan. So Steve is driving, Marty's up front with Steve, and they're conversing about astronomy and baseball and all kinds of Wisconsin sports, everything else. The two Marys are in the middle seats. I'm behind them in the way back, knitting away. We're talking education kind of over each other's shoulders, and the two guys are up front, and they're totally oblivious to what's going on in the back there. Totally oblivious. Stopping off to look at pumpkins and having dinner somewhere before or after, whatever. One year, they came to us on, I don't remember if it was New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, but they came over, and on the way, the weather changed. Now, I don't know how many of you are true Californians and don't go anywhere else, but in Wisconsin, you never know what's going to happen. And, the weather can change in 20 minutes, and it did. So they left home, it was raining. By the time they got to our house, it was actually solid ice. And they lived, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour away. So they got to our house, they couldn't even get out of the car because it was just a sheet of black ice. And if you don't know what black ice is, it's exactly that. It's a very thin sheet of impenetrable ice that's whatever color is underneath it. So we just call it black ice because a blacktop road, you can't see the ice, you're just there. And so we had to help them get out of the car, get into the grass so they could walk up to the front door. And the first thing I said when they got in the door was, "You're not going home. There's no way you're going home tonight." So then we scrambled around and found places for everybody to sleep. I think Mary was the only one that thought about it, Mary Kienitz, and actually packed a little night bag. No one else did. It was Mary P. did. Fortunately we had extra toothbrushes and stuff in the bathroom. So they ended up spending the day, the next day, or the night the next day. Mary, and I are doing, I don't know, some quilting or something. I remember being at the ironing board and cutting out fabric or whatever. And Steve, I don't know what he was doing, and I look over, and there's Marty in my rocking chair, sound asleep. Just rocking the house, honestly. So much for the football game that day. And we also helped them move some things. When they moved from Sunfield Street to the apartment, they had stored a bunch of stuff. So with our van, of course, we put all the seats down, we put all the boxes from their storage bin into the back of our car and hauled them off to the west side so they could find places to store them over there. And then the last thing that happened was when they came to move back to California, there was a week between when they had to be out of their apartment and when they had some place to live here. and they were planning to stay in a motel or something. So at one point, Steve and I were on our way over there for something. I can't remember why we were going over there. We were headed west, talking about this, and I said, there's no way we're gonna stay in a motel. So I called our friend Mary P. and said, Mary and Marty aren't home, where do you think they are? And she said, well, they told me they were going grocery shopping. All right, where did they shop? Metcalf's. All right, so we drove over to Metcalf's, found them sitting on a bench resting before they got ready to leave to go home. And so we tracked them down at a grocery store and told them they were gonna live with us for a week before they left for California, which they did. And then the big sacrifice was getting them to the airport at 5:30 in the morning so they could get on a plane. And our last memory of them in town with us was Marty and I sitting on a bench and asked him if he wanted a cup of coffee or something. He did. So I went and got him a cup of coffee, or us coffee, and I don't know what it was, bagel or something or other. And so there's Marty and I sitting on a bench in the airport waiting for the plane to get ready to leave. And that was the last time we actually saw Marty, I think, was sitting on that bench at the airport. And Marty and Mary both until Wednesday when we got here. Those are our memories of Mary and Marty in our hometown in Madison. Thank you.
Lois is going to be a song leader for this next piece.
This song is called Let There have a few words to say. I'm Lois, and I'm Paul's partner, Marty's son Paul. And I'd like to briefly mention some of the memorable things we did with Marty and Mary in recent years. For their 60th wedding anniversary, Mary wanted to go to Chicago, so we went. And Roy and Asa joined us. I arranged for high tea at the Drake Hotel. And I'll never forget going to the top of the John Hancock building. Last year, a couple of months before Marty and Mary moved to California, we all met in Boston for Simon's graduation. Afterward, we took Marty, Mary, and Simon to places near Boston, where Marty and the other Kienitzes have famous ancestors. I don't have time to go into the details now, although Marty's resemblance to the painting of one of his Puritan ancestors from the 1600s was noticeable. His name was Nathaniel Rogers, and the beautiful home of his great-grandson has become a house of peace, where refugees of war stay when they first come to this country. We were fortunate to eat lunch in that house with some of those refugees. After Marty and Mary moved to California, we did things like
rent a house on a horse ranch near hundreds of sandhill cranes and other wintering birds out of the delta. We all stood out in a field one evening, watching the birds fly in to gather together and sleep under a beautiful moon in the fields. For their anniversary this year, I found a restaurant with old-fashioned lasagna because Marty said he'd like that. On the 4th of July, we all went to an artist festival and afterwards watched fireworks of multiple towns and cities from just outside their apartment. Later in July, we all went down to San Francisco to see the latest musical that Marty's nephew, Tony Kienitz, wrote and produced, and he couldn't be here today. Marty's brother Al and his wife Marge were here, and it was cool to see Marty and Al together. After the play, we went to lunch, and I enjoyed seeing Marty having a lively conversation with his grandnephew Jackson, who had played the lead in the play. In late August, the four of us went up to Lake Hennessy in Napa County, where the western grebes made nests out of reeds, like little rafts, and then float on them near shore, each sitting on a big white egg. And there's a picture of that over there in the slideshow, along with some of the other things I mentioned. Sitting there by that lake, looking out at that lake, that's one of my favorite memories with Marty. Thank you.
Jessica Smith.
Hello, I'm Jessica Smith, and I am with Faith in Action of Solana. Ecclesiastes verse 3 says, there is a time to every purpose. When I met Mary and Marty, they had just relocated here to Benicia from Madison, and were feeling a little challenged by the transition, with difficulty getting taxis in town and learning Lyft. I had just re-entered volunteering after many years taking off, and I was immediately matched with Mary and Marty that same month. I believe it was kismet that I should come back to volunteering right at that time, so that I could be there to support Mary and Marty in their transition. In my work with Mary and Marty, I palled around town with them, taking care of various errands, and sat in their living room swapping stories, and got to know and enjoy them both so dearly. Marty literally always seemed to have a good mood and a smile, not just on his lips, but in his eyes. Even when he faced some serious medical concerns, like a wild temperature fluctuation, or when he faced difficult technical issues like laptop and printer malfunctions, and investigating hearing aids, Marty approached these life issues with a cool head and a mild manner. Marty really never had a bad word about anything. Having had a very dysfunctional father myself, I found it so healing to be around a gentle and loving male energy like Marty had. He showed care and interest in my own escapades and my internship and my thesis writing. He shared his grief when his sister passed on, showing me a photo of his family gathered around her. Looking at the picture together, I felt that Marty and I stepped right into that moment, communing around his sister's bedside. Even in that grief, Marty was gentle and quiet and understated, but genuine and connected and loving. After just over a year working together, Mary and Marty started to really feel settled here. They were connected with the Carquinez group for social engagement and stimulation, including lectures and dinner gatherings. They attended the opera, the movie theater, and they delighted in the number of unexpected visitors they've had to fill their lives and hearts. Marty enjoyed a delightful trip with his singing pals down in Palo Alto. He was very proud of his son getting up early to take photographs of the local landscape, and his grandson off in college with a nice girlfriend. He felt grateful for his son and partner living nearby and helping with all their technical snafus. I believe Marty chose his time to leave this earth wisely, knowing Mary had the new roots that she would need. I was so touched by Marty's life, by knowing and being with him. It was such a blessing to me, especially now, knowing it was the end. It's an even bigger honor to have shared that precious time with him. I love Mary and Marty, and I will remember him in my heart forever.
Janice, Magner.
I guess I'm the last one because I had, we were the last part of Mary and Marty's life. I'm from the Carquinez village, and Mary asked if one of us could come and talk about the village and what it meant to them and how helpful we were. Mary and Marty joined our village just a year ago, last October, but I didn't meet them until the spring when, as a volunteer, I picked them up. I think I took them to a field trip the first time. We went to Alexander Lindsay Junior Museum and saw the owls. And I just fell in love with them. They were just great, you know. They get in my car and Mary's chatting away like Mary likes to chat away, and Marty's just sitting there quietly, but very, very present. And his quietness wasn't a removal, but it was a presence. And so whenever I had the opportunity, I would take them places, and I would remind them. I'd call them up and say, "Did you register for the balance class yet?" Or, and they only live like 3 blocks from me. So I took them often. But she was, you know, I called her, I talked to her, I said, "What was it about the village that you want me to talk about?" So her first thing was, she said, it was her saving grace. When they got here, and we didn't know anyone except for, I'm sorry.
Oh, Jessica?
Except for Jessica, who they just talked, Mary talks so highly about. And then Mary read an article in a newspaper. A couple of our members write articles every other week, and she saw the village, and she joined the village, and they were very active. So she was saying, we didn't know anyone, and we needed everything. And so what we provided was rides to the doctor, to places in the grocery store, places that they needed to go to. We provided a social activity for them where they got to meet lots of people. And the last big event they came to, they had spent all day with their son in Fairfield. But we have an over 80s club, and we had a barbecue. And by God, they made it to our barbecue at 5 o'clock. And we had a wonderful time. You know, we had a sing-along of old songs, and they were singing, and it was so wonderful to see what a good time they had. And we made such an effort to participate, and we made such an effort to help them get there and participate and provide things for them. Then she met Pat and Ray, and they told her United about this church, and they joined this congregation. And they became friends with Pat and Ray, and they're sitting right over here. And Mary's planning to stay and continue participating with us after, she's
experience. And I just wanted to share that, in meeting the two of them, the connection they had as a couple, it was so delightful to be around them. They were so caring and loving to each other. And even though Mary would make fun of Marty a lot, and they would, laugh but they had a good time. And it just warmed my heart to see such a loving couple, because you don't see them as often as we should these days. So that's our village. We provide, Mary said she wanted us to be an advertisement, so I'll advertise for a minute and say we provide services like rides, getting people places they need to be. We provide educational thing where we have talks and we have different people that we're having
The films?
the films. Oh, we can't forget the films. They love the films. They do very. I have it down here, movies. And we provide social activities. We provide some educational things. We have speakers that come and talk to us about various topics. And so those are all the things our goal is to keep people at home as long as we can, so that we provide these services that can stay and people with assisted living as long as possible. So that's our village, and Mary and Marty very much part of it, and I am going to miss Marty terribly. So that's
So I'd like to thank everybody for their willingness to share their memories about Marty. Marty's life was one that was enriched by a strong and harmonious marriage with deep family ties, meaningful work, the joy of singing, time spent outdoors, fun with friends, contributions to the community, and powerful ethical choices. Some community organizations played a critical part in their lives. The Epilepsy Group, Madison's Presbyterian Church that organized mentors for at-risk children, and the three groups here in the Benicia and Vallejo area. It's at times like these when the true power of community support, and community building makes itself manifest. Churches and other community groups share a common mission: to meet real and tangible human need through acts of loving service, by building relationships of compassionate empathy, kindness. From the very first chapters of the Bible, the need for community is front and center. Let us create humankind in our image, God says in Genesis. It is not good for the man to be alone, God continues in Genesis. Community is an essential part of human existence, and today's celebration is just one more example of how essential community building is. Mary's extremely grateful for the support and the strength of Faith in Action, Carquinez Village, and her new church family here at Heritage Presbyterian Church. And she's asked me to read two scripture passages, to share two scripture passages with you that will help her face the coming years. The first is from Isaiah 40, verse 31. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. And also the 23rd Psalm now has a new depth of meaning for her. I'm reading from the English Standard Version. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the